The Whispering Shadows. Emily had always loved her old family home. It was a towering Victorian mansion, with creaking wooden floors and an overgrown garden. It had been in her family for generations, and when she inherited it, she decided to restore it to its former glory. From the moment she moved in, though, something felt off. At night, the house seemed to breathe. Floorboards groaned as if someone were pacing just beyond her line of sight. The air was heavy, carrying faint whispers that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. One stormy evening, as lightning lit up the sky, Emily decided to explore the attic, a place she'd avoided since moving in. Armed with a flashlight, she climbed the rickety stairs. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers grew louder, more distinct. At the top of the stairs, the attic door stood slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Pushing it open, Emily shone her flashlight around the room. Old furniture, cobwebs, and forgotten belongings filled the space. But then, she noticed a small, dust-covered chest in the corner. Curiosity got the better of her. Kneeling beside it, she pried it open. Inside were yellowed letters, a broken pocket watch, and a photograph of a woman who looked eerily similar to Emily. Written on the back of the photo were the words, "To my dearest Emily, forever bound." Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and went out. The whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, and years passed, and the mansion became a local legend. Children dared each other to touch its iron gates, and teenagers crept into its garden on moonless nights, swearing they heard faint whispers or saw fleeting shadows at the attic window. The house, it seemed, refused to be forgotten. One autumn evening, a historian named James decided to investigate the mansion. Fascinated by its eerie reputation, he was determined to uncover the truth behind Emily's disappearance. Armed with recording equipment, a flashlight, and his journal, James entered the house, the air inside thick with neglect and an unnatural chill. As he explored, James noticed strange markings carved into the wooden walls, symbols he couldn't decipher. They grew more intricate as he moved closer to the attic. The whispers began soon after, faint at first, then louder, overlapping, as if a dozen voices were speaking at once. He felt watched, every shadow in the house seeming to lean toward him. Finally, he reached the attic. The door was ajar, just as Emily had found it years ago. Pushing it open, James shone his flashlight inside. The room was nearly empty now, no chest, no furniture, just dust and darkness. But at the center of the room lay the photograph, untouched by time. James knelt to examine it. The image was different. Emily and the mysterious woman were no longer alone. A third figure had joined them, a shadowy outline with piercing, hollow eyes. Beneath the photo, scrawled in a substance that years turned into decades, and the mansion's legend became a tale passed through generations, a warning to curious souls. Still, the house stood defiant against time, its withered facade darkened by neglect, its windows like hollow eyes watching the town below. A paranormal research team finally took notice. Led by Dr. Evelyn Carter, an expert in unexplained phenomena, the group sought to document the truth about the house. Armed with cameras, EMF detectors, and recording devices, they arrived at the mansion on a cold, moonless night. Evelyn had heard the stories but dismissed them as folklore, a tapestry woven from fear and superstition. The team entered cautiously. The air inside was oppressive, the smell of damp wood and decay wrapping around them like a shroud. Evelyn directed her team to set up equipment while she ventured deeper into the house. Her recorder captured faint whispers from the start, though her ears heard only silence. Hours passed, and the activity grew undeniable. Shadows shifted against the walls without a light source, cold spots formed in rooms where no draft could exist, and the whispers became louder, almost coherent. In the attic, Evelyn found the photograph. She stared at it, mesmerized. The once two-dimensional figures now seemed almost alive. The woman, Emily, and James gazed out with expressions of torment, and the shadowy figure loomed larger, its hollow eyes boring into Evelyn's soul. Beneath the photograph, new words had a pay. Over the years, the mansion's legend grew darker. People from neighboring towns spoke of it as if it were a living thing, a predator lurking in plain sight. Those who ventured near claimed they could hear faint voices calling their names, accompanied by the eerie feeling of being watched. No one who entered ever returned, and yet the stories lured more visitors, as if the house itself was spreading its tale. One rainy evening, a man named Lucas arrived in town. A skeptic by nature and a writer by trade, Lucas sought inspiration for his next novel. The mansion was the perfect subject, a storied place with a history of disappearances. Despite the warnings from locals, Lucas was determined to spend the night inside. Equipped with a notebook, a lantern, and a camera, he approached the mansion. The air seemed to change as he crossed the gate, growing thick and heavy. The front door creaked open with surprising ease, as if inviting him inside. Lucas hesitated for a moment, then stepped into the dark, cavernous hallway. The house felt alive. The floor beneath his boots groaned with every step, and faint whispers echoed down the corridors. Lucas chalked it up to his imagination, a byproduct of the house's eerie atmosphere. He began exploring, noting the decayed grandeur of the place, the ornate wallpaper peeling away, the once beautiful chandelier now covered in cobwebs. As the hours passed, Lucas documented every detail. But as midnight approached, the house began to change.